So as we've been reporting throughout this hour, there is movement right now up on Capitol Hill, and this time the breaking news comes in from the President of the United States. Senators have reached a deal to avoid a government shutdown, and President Trump posting this on Truth Social, saying Republicans and Democrats in Congress have come together to get the vast majority of the government funded until September, while at the same time providing an extension to the Department of Homeland Security, including the very important Coast Guard. Hopefully, both Republicans and Democrats will give a very much needed bipartisan yes vote. That from the president moments ago. Joining us now, Julia Manchester, White House reporter for The Hill, Annalyse Keller, former communications director for Senator Cory Gardner, and Dan Kanninen, former Battleground States director for both the Biden and Harris campaigns. Hello to you both. Thanks for being in. Nice moment to have our White House reporter from The Hill here. I would also add, decode that for me from Trump.
Trump.
That post about what's going on with the shutdown. It seems like they have a deal,
yes,
but they're still going to negotiate what funding to DHS looks like.
Absolutely. And DHS is obviously a huge sticking point right here. And I think a lot of it depends on the administration's next moves going forward when it comes to DHS and the situation in Minneapolis. We have seen the administration back off in many ways in terms of, not fully back off, but in terms of how they're handling the situation. We know that there have been some, removal of, some ICE officers. We know that Homan's in, Bovino's out. So I think, it's a little give and take, but they still have more negotiating to do.
More negotiating to do. You're focused on House Republicans. That this is not necessarily a slam dunk, you don't think?
It's something to watch. I also think we do need to watch what happens in the Senate. Senate Republicans, there are going to be some that are not going to support this deal. If they had their way, they would have not pulled out the DHS portion of this agreement. So remember, this is 6 appropriation bills to fund the government. They've already done 6. And this was something that was negotiated by Republicans and Democrats. The House has already passed this. And then based on the events over the weekend in Minneapolis, Democrats are saying they can no longer in good conscience go forward with this DHS funding. So that's what we're fighting about. And Republicans and Majority Leader Thune would have gone ahead and put this on the floor. And in fact, they did, and it failed, except for Trump got involved. And he said he negotiated directly with Chuck Schumer. He rolled Senate Republicans here and said, Chuck Schumer, we are going to figure this out. I do not want a government shutdown. And I think that speaks to the sort of tone and tenor of the nation right now.
Rolled Senate Republicans?
Yeah, that's how I see it. That's how I viewed it. I knew a lot of Senate Republicans. I was hearing from them, and they wanted to go forward with this package and basically put it on Democrats and say, okay, if you want to shut down the government over this, that is okay. You heard Senator McCormick speaking earlier. The one big beautiful bill, of course, had more than $70 billion for ICE in it. So this isn't really functionally changing the amount of money that ICE is getting here.
How far should Democrats push here? You think they have a little bit of leverage?
Well, they do, and I think they have an imperative to push on this, at least a bit. I mean, this agency has been out of control. We made this point the other day. Obviously, they can't get all the funding that was given to ICE in the big, beautiful bill. There's $100 billion there, but this is a chance to have some reform, some leverage to change how they're operating. And it's great, I think, that Tom Homan is taking a more professional approach and tact in Minneapolis than Noem and Bovino did, and the tone is different, that is true. But there's still an approach here overall with ICE, and a lot of concerns about training, a lot of concerns about tactics, a lot of concerns about the size and scale of the budget and the mandate. And it's a chance for Democrats to get to the table on this. And Republicans would do well to work with them because the American public has totally lost faith in this agency and their approach in the last couple of days.
We've watched a lot of, whatever you think about Donald Trump, he's open, he brings the cameras in, and when it comes to cabinet meetings, we saw this in the first administration, we've seen this in this administration. He lets the camera roll, it goes on for hours, he takes lots of questions, they go around the table. Not today. This one lasted about an hour and 20 minutes, took no questions, Julia, and then let me show you here who did not speak in the cabinet meeting. About half the officials did, and of those who did not, Kristi Noem top left there of your screen. What, if anything, does what the president did today signal to you, Julia?
This is incredibly significant because we know that in past cabinet meetings, President Trump has all of his cabinet secretaries go around and talk about the progress they're making, what they're working on, et cetera. He seemed to handpick a few. It's not like she was the only cabinet secretary.
Big list there, which I just showed.
There was a big list, but it's notable that he didn't go to everyone. And not taking questions, that's obviously a choice. And then just a few minutes ago in the Oval Office, he signed an executive order on addiction, did not take questions. I can't tell you how highly unusual this is for Donald Trump. And I think it's interesting that today started off with Tom Homan in Minneapolis giving this press conference. I think they're very much trying to shift Homan, to being the face of this situation.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah, that's how I read that as well. The one sort of wrinkle that I'll say, and as we're watching what happens with Secretary Noem and sort of her political future, I think the more that Democrats push for an impeachment effort, the more that Senators Murkowski and Tillis, who are not traditionally aligned with the MAGA base, the more that they come out and sort of say that she needs to go and be replaced, I think the safer her job is.
Doesn't every time Hakeem Jeffries say that, it makes it more likely that she stays?
Sure, that's probably true, but it's also true that I think she's effectively neutered in this position. I think Tom Homan's now in charge, by all accounts. And there's been some really good reporting about the back of the house politics here, that Homan, who's done this, under Democratic administrations and Republican administrations, has an approach far more aggressive than I would take, but there's a policy approach he has to go get criminals. And what Bavino and Noem were doing, I think, was creating a show for Trump that was about the politics, and there was a tension there. There's a lot of reporting on this. And Homan had lost initially the battle of what was going to be the approach in Minneapolis, and that approach has gone very, very badly and tragically. So I think he's back on top, and he's running the show.
It was interesting as well, because the president did not focus a lot on immigration during that cabinet meeting. Here's what he did say, though.
Our border is very secure, record-setting secure. We had 0 illegal aliens being admitted into our country for the last 8 months. That's hard for even me to believe.
I noted earlier this week, Annalyse, with Mick Mulvaney and Sean Spicer, that what the president is trying to do is say, look at what we did on the border. Because even Democrats will admit, I just had the mayor of San Diego sitting here saying, job well done. Can he do that? Can he make this pivot and say, don't look here, look there, because I did a good job here?
I mean, the challenge with that is he's right. He has closed the border, and but the American people were focused on that when it was a problem. I think it's hard to make people, go to vote in a midterm election when you're not a border town that's having those challenges. You're not across the country seeing the influx of migrants coming into your communities. So I think, sure, can he talk about it? Of course. Will people hear him and feel like, yes, that was a problem that's now fixed? But it's not this pressing issue that's driving people to the ballot anymore. So I don't think it's going to be effective in terms of turning people out.
Where success actually hurts in some sense, I guess?
Yeah, almost, because I think that's why, at times people wouldn't want to solve a problem because it's better as a political football.
I do agree with that. I think there's a lot of politics in the Biden years about that. But I will say, on the border piece, had he closed the border the way he did and solved that problem, and then concurrently or right afterwards got on the stick on affordability, he'd be in a much better place. But instead, he did his tariff regime, they did the big, beautiful bill. They gave $100 billion to ICE. They still haven't solved the ACA problem on the doubled premiums. They haven't done anything to tackle affordability legislatively or otherwise. If he had solved that problem and then moved on to something else people care about, he'd be in a stronger place. But now we're talking about ICE and this reckless abuse.
I'll give you the last word.
There are a lot of swing voters who voted for Donald Trump in 2024 on the issues of the border and the economy. They feel, right now, polling shows he's not there yet on the economy and fixing that, but they feel that he's gone way too far on the border. This is Donald Trump trying to say, look what I did. But to Annalise's point, I don't know how salient that is going into November.
By the way, DHS agencies, and as we talk about funding and all this and the new battle that's going to happen, they were given $168 billion in the One Big Beautiful Bill. 74 billion of that went to ICE. So consider that as all this conversation picks up about funding ICE. Dan, Annalyse, Julia, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.